So today's conversation actually is something what the conclave is all about. It's about, breaking labels, breaking glass ceilings, breaking stereotypes. Having us on the panel is each person who's actually done something on this issue. We of course have Khushbu. We remember she got into some trouble for a survey where incidentally Kaveri Bamzai, who's also broken another ceiling, she's been the first woman editor of India Today, and she's also written books on women, on the achievers. So Kaveri and I were doing a sex survey or something on India Today, and we asked Khushbu to comment, and I think that is where when she spoke about marital sex and live-in relationships, and she got into some trouble for that. She got into a court case, okay. And we have Sumer Singh, who is the honorary chromosome X on the panel, because he's better known as Pummy Auntie. You've all seen him do the Pummy Auntie spoofs, and he's again someone who highlights various issues in a way, in a satirical way, on how women are seen, and the kind of labels that women get attached to women. So Kaveri, I like to just put this in perspective. It's not easy being a woman, right? But it's great fun.
It is. I think it's great fun. And also I think the notions that we have about who a woman is, what she does. In fact, I'd like to take this opportunity to tell Sumer that Pummy Auntie has been replaced by Karan Uncle. I think Karan Johar does exactly what you do. He does it on Coffee with Karan. You do it with Sumer with tea. Matchmaking and whatever else. So that's
just he has more better vocabulary and more sophisticated way.
But Pummy Auntie is fine. But I think the whole idea of the labels that are attached to women, I think we need to first understand when we look at women in the workforce. There are certain numbers that are thrown at you, and I myself sometimes look at them and I think the number of women in the workforce, for instance, has declined, and you think this is a source of worry. It's come down to something like 9%. It's in the formal workforce. You look at the number of women we have in parliament, it's 12%. You look at the contribution of women to GDP. We have 48% of the population, but we contribute just about 17%. So when you look at some of the numbers, you think the situation is really dire. And these labels that are attached to women, we don't work enough, or we don't have a role in the formal workforce. When you start looking behind the labels and the numbers, I think that's when you come to the real picture. And I think the real picture is that really women do hold up the entire country. I mean, when you look at women farmers, how many of us know that the most difficult work that women do, the most difficult part of farming is actually done by women, because the men couldn't be bothered to do the sowing and the planting. They come in when it comes to, rolling the tractors and, sitting with the bullock carts. How many of us know that women are just about 65% of the farming community? The idea that we have of this male farmer is so different from the reality. The idea that women in India actually work 10 times more than men do at home, that's something that is not that's again disregarded. So I think when it comes to the idea of woman, as someone who's constrained by domesticity, as someone who's constrained by her, the conditions, the cultural conditions she lives in, I think those are the labels that we have to look behind and beyond. And when you start looking at the real numbers is when you realize the contribution that women have made to this country and to the economy and continue to make, but is not valued enough. And I think that is the whole patriarchy and the hierarchy that we have to fight against.
That is true. In fact, Khushbu, talking about what you went through, I mean, now of course a comment like that may not raise eyebrows, but something else will raise eyebrows.
It will, I'm sure.
So a bit about how you handled it, and are you now more circumspect, or you haven't changed?
I haven't changed. Nothing can change me. Born with a trait to stand up for what is right. I think when I made those statements, it was very relevant because we were talking about HIV and in Tamil Nadu, Namakkal being the center point of HIV patients. And mostly women were thrown out of the houses because they thought you contract HIV and it's all women's fault. There's nothing to do with men. Yeah. So we were talking about, there was a lot of about illegitimate children, children being thrown in a dustbin, newborn babies being found dead, strangulated and everything. So I was writing a column in India Today, and that's when I said that these are the issues. Premarital sex do happen. We cannot brush it under the carpet, and we cannot hide away and say that these things do not happen. There were a few mushrooming political parties who wanted to be, latch onto it and make a name for themselves. They wanted to show themselves that they were the saviors of Tamil culture. So out of 7 crore population, there were this 2,000 jingbang who was standing outside my house and troubling me. But that didn't deter me. I fought the cases. There were 46 in all cases slapped against me. 24 were cleared by Chennai High Court, Madras High Court, but 22 were in Supreme Court. So the only thing that did to me then, from 2005 to 2010, those 5 years, was give a big dent and hole in my pocket because I had one of the best lawyers from India fighting my case, Pinky Anand, fighting for me, and finally we won the case.
In fact, Pinky Anand is coming later in the day
Oh,
also.
great. So Pinky Anand did a very great job. But my only, that time the problem was, as a woman, the pain that I went through, I was very clear that I had to fight this out. But the only pain I went through is like my daughter, she was just 5. And she was down with dengue then. I couldn't even take her to the hospital. She needed a blood transfusion, but her platelets were very low. And there were this crowd of 2,000 people, unknown people standing outside my house, and I couldn't take her to the hospital. They wouldn't allow the ambulance to come in. So we had to almost convert our home into a mini hospital and make sure that she was given the treatment. So that was the only pain as a mother I went through because I could see my child suffering. But I think finally, when I won the cases, I was having the last laugh, and I still continue to do that.
May you continue to do that. In fact, your daughter is here. We'd like to welcome her also to the conclave today. And Sumer, Pummy Auntie, how did that all come about? And are you going to join us today as Pummy Auntie or as Sumer Singh? I have to tell you, there are 2 people here in the audience sitting here who keep forwarding your posts every day, Sunanda and Mayuri, sitting right in front.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you, and really privileged to be here amongst Khushbu ji and Kaveri ji and Priya ji. Well, Pummy Auntie it just came to rescue my life, I'll say. So, some people might say, "Theek hai," but I think so. It's the Pummy Auntie who started running my house. So, when we said there is always a woman behind a man for a successful life, it was Pummy Auntie for me. And yes, and it just started randomly, and it started getting viral. Mr. Rishi Kapoor tweeting about it. The media attention came to me. Now it's been 6 years, and I still do Pummy Auntie whenever I see something important to talk about or I'm offered good money.
Well, Pummy Auntie is always, in a towel and spying on her neighbors and telling you the neighborhood gossip and this thing. So, again, in a way, there is also a stereotyping of a woman that she is being a gossip or she is, or are you trying to do more with that?
Like Pummy Auntie say, exchanging information is not gossip. So if the news channels are giving the information, that does not mean it's gossiping. They're giving the information. So women don't gossip, they just exchange information in a healthy way. And trust me, men gossip more than women, let me just tell you.
It's very interesting. When you talk about Pummy Auntie, she's usually talking about cultural mores and usne shaadi nahi kari, wo itne ki ho gayi, etc., etc. These are sort of the cultural norms that we grow up with, and these are the stereotypes that are thrust upon women. I think the whole idea that we have now of a woman's success is this sanskari success. The woman has to conform to certain sanskari norms. Only then will she be considered a successful woman. So what in the West is called having it all. You have to be a good mother, you have to be a good wife, you have to be a good boss, you have to be a good daughter, you have to be, you have to do everything. And within that also, if you dare to cross any of these sanskari boxes, if you don't tick them, you're going to be in trouble, as Khushbu found. I mean, I think if she made the same remark even now, she would probably have 20,000 people outside her home. Yeah, and maybe people from her own party as well, you know. So I think the idea that we have now, in some ways, we've become a little regressive, you know. A woman who does not conform to the notion of what sanskari is immediately seen as something of an outlier or outsider.
I have to pinpoint who made these sanskars.
Of course.
Because
we
we
did.
have been conditioned
Yeah.
to do that. It is not that's how men are supposed to act or women are supposed to act. There were no conditions before,
Of
long
course.
time back. I don't know who made it, but I think so it should have been equal for both. And that's how I always believe in that.
But unfortunately, we live in a society where I think all these sanskars have been forced down the gullet, and now we have sort of conformed to them. And the minute you, I think, cross the Lakshman Rekha, you're in trouble.
No, but I think in today's times, you know, you still have that when your daughter is getting married, the first thing you tell them, beta kuch bhi ho jaye, sambhal lena. You know, you need to get out of that. Ki beta kuch bhi ho jaye, sambhal lena. I think what we need to, when your daughter is going away from your home, I have 2 girls, and I say, if she's getting married and going away, the first thing you have to tell ho jaye, beta kuch bhi ho jaye, ghar khula hai, wapas aane ki himmat rakhna. That is what we need to tell our girls. Because for them, कि अरे माँ बाप का घर छोड़ दिया तो कुछ भी हो जाए, any kind of abuse I have to, you know, tolerate and I have to manage, and मुझे I have to make my marriage work. Yes, marriage is like a, I always believe that marriage is like a railway track. दोनों साथ में पटरियाँ साथ में हैं, लेकिन equally चलनी है. कहीं एक में गड़बड़ हो जाए तो derail हो जाएगी. But I mean, this is something which the patriarchy mindset what we have, कि you have to be tolerant, you have to compromise. It's not about make adjustments. You have to compromise. That mindset, even the mothers, you know, this is the mindset which we give to our children. So I think we need to come out of that mindset. Ki a girl needs to be, and I tell both my girls, said nothing doing, no marriage till you are financially independent. Get financially independent, do something out of your life, and only then I'm going to get you both married, not before that.
In fact, that is, Kaveri, a very important thing, that financial independence for a woman is more important than... But you, Khushbu is in politics, and you raised the issue where Khushbu is in more trouble today than she is earlier.
I do think so. And I think, and yet, when you look at the women, for instance, of Shaheen Bagh, or the students of JNU, who were the most vocal? They were the women. So there's a lot of untapped anger, and I think there's a lot of untapped rage among the women. And I think given an opportunity, they would also like to lead from the front. It's just the way that anger has to be channeled. And sometimes I think if it's not channeled, people talk about the demographic dividend becoming a demographic disaster. I'm afraid if the women are not channeled or given the kind of opportunities that they ought to be given, that is the anger that men should fear. Because when they're given a chance, you look at the farmers' protests. People thought it was just the male farmer. There were so many women there who were so angry. The Shaheen Bagh protests, all the university protests, you have women in the forefront. What is that telling you? That women are angry. They're not satisfied with the circumstances that, have been thrust upon them. They want to change them. They want to break out of the stereotypes. So until something is done, and I don't think it's something that needs to be done by the state or the NGOs or the corporates, although all of them have to contribute to it, women themselves have to make that change as well. And I think what Khushbu said is right. It has to, unfortunately, start with the mothers. We are responsible for holding aloft the entire, cultural sort of value of this nation. So I guess we should make a start. Or the Pummy aunties, by telling other aunties how they should behave.
Well, Pummy auntie is...
very progressive sometimes.
Very progressive at times. I always say, once I asked people, do you all love Pummy auntie? And they all said, and I'm like, is there anything you don't like about Pummy auntie? Nobody raised the hand. I'm like, you know what, the lady you love the most, I hate the most.
Why?
because she is the reflection of the society. She is the most hypocrite lady you can ever see. She has tarazu. She talks about her daughter in a very high level, but when it comes to her daughter-in-law, she tries to put that power on her that she doesn't like her. So that's typical hypocrisy. Like I always say, in the Pummy auntie line, if I have to say, penji मैं अपनी कुड़ी वालों ते बहुत खुश हगी हाँ. मेरा जवाई सारा दिन काम करता है, उन्हों एनी ऐश करांदा है ना, वो बड़ी मजे कर दी पई है. लेकिन ए मारजानी कोई काम ही नहीं करती, मेरा मुंडा काम करता रहता है तो वो खांदी है बैके. So that way she is totally okay when her son-in-law is working and giving all the gifts to her daughter, but she is not fine when her son is trying to pamper his wife. So
I think when the Pummy aunties become, are no longer the Pummy mothers, I think that is when the change will happen. When they start to look at life from the other side, from the side of the daughter-in-law, from the side of the son, and that is
there
when
won't be so much fun.
This generation,
I may not be.
I'll say the Pummy auntie generation, which is now getting extinct, I always say, it's very difficult for them because they have been suppressed by their mother-in-laws at that time when they got married. And now when they thought that they will have their liberty to do whatever, now it's like they have those unfulfilled wishes they wish to do towards their daughter-in-laws. So this generation, like Pummy say, penji assi sas kolu bhi juttiyan khaiyan, te hun nuo koli bhi assi juttiyan kha rahe hain. So this generation is difficult, but now yes, women are becoming very progressive. Times are changing. Everybody has started accepting that women can equally run the house. I'll be perfectly fine if my wife today says we have to shift and I'll take care of you. I'll be like, wow, please do that. So times are changing and people are doing that.
Yeah, also I think the whole idea that this Beti Bachao Andolan has to also look at the betas, The betajis are also the problem.
The betis will be bachawed if the betas get the right sanskar. Come to that word again.
The mothers have to do that, of course.
The mothers have a role. But I will not ask you about being a daughter or daughter-in-law, but Khushbu, you've been a Congress ki beti and now you're a BJP ki beti. So which party is nicer to the betis?
I'm the best daughter-in-law to my mother-in-law. I think it all depends how you also behave.
Are you behaving?
मेरा मायका ठीक नहीं था, तो अभी ससुराल में हूँ, तो यहाँ पर खुश हूँ. मायका ठीक होता तो वहाँ ठीक होती. ससुराल में खुश हूँ. But I think it also depends on how you behave. To me, my mother-in-law took me, I've been married for more than 22 years and I've known my husband for 27 and a half years. But I think my mother-in-law took 20 long years to accept me wholeheartedly. I come from a filmy background, I come from a different religion, and my mother-in-law is like a very, very pious who does, puja, subha, sham, puja, part, ye, wo, and she has a way of living. That is how she has been. So I didn't expect her to change, but she didn't have a choice to accept me, but it took a good 20 long years to accept me as the best daughter-in-law of the family. So today, patience is perseverance. Patience is perseverance. That patience is virtue, you say. So I think you also need to be a little patient. But
I think we need a Pummy uncle now, Sumer.
Pummy uncle, I don't know if that will be more funnier than Pummy because Pummy has taken such a hype. Now, no matter whatever I try to even change Pummy with a Kishori Lal uncle, people just say, Pummy best, Pummy best. So I think so they like the alter ego of Pummy much better than what Sumera says.
I think what Shumesh was doing was basically, it was a reflection of your society. Yeah, how women behave, how they talk, because we see a lot of women. And let me tell you that men are still okay with women being progressive. It's the other women who are not okay with women being progressive. मतलब उनकी ताक झाक शुरू हो जाती है. अरे वो कहाँ गई थी पता है, रात को 2 बजे आई थी, उसको छोड़ने के लिए कोई आया था. अरे कौन आया था, क्यों आया था, क्या फर्क पड़ता है, आपका क्या प्रॉब्लम है. But it is more that women who are more inquisitive as to कौन किसकी जिंदगी में क्या हो रहा है and क्या कर रहे हैं.
That's the point, Kaveri. Women pulling women down. That's also a big issue.
Yeah, but as a society itself, we're so judgmental, men or women. You go to any village and you'll find that there'll be a gaggle of men smoking hookah and talking to each other, talking nonsense usually. There'll be another gaggle of young men who are unemployed and who'll just be sitting there, and if there's a woman passing, they'll make some comments. The women will be inside the home, working away, milking the cows, taking care of the fields, cooking the next meal. They don't have time to do all this. So it's only when the aunties come to the cities that they have time to gossip. Otherwise, it's the Uncle G's who are running our villages and, passing comments on everyone and making judgment calls. It's this intrinsic judgmentalism, I think, we have as a society. That is really, I think, affecting us. And those are the stereotypes that are created and are embedded in our consciousness. It's very difficult to break out of them. And some can laugh at them, and thank God we can laugh at them. And some are just, there's no way out,
That is true. No, we are totally out of time. But I'll say one thing that, being a woman, there are pluses, minuses. But I have to say that women are definitely much more fun than men. We had this conclave, we women want, and some men in our department read it as we want women. I think that's just the real thing, is that...
they would really want the women, but you ain't gonna get them.
But you call this conclave, we men want. I don't know whether we'll get such a stellar audience. So thank you.
No way.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.